Hello there, podcast fans, it's Adam here. This is a slightly different episode of Soccer Cards and Chill. What we're doing in this episode is we're combining two interviews that I recorded a few weeks ago now together. So the first segment of this show is going to be a conversation that I had with George from Cambridge Soccer Cards. George is a huge Futera enthusiast, but obviously he loves his sports trading cards, his soccer trading cards in particular. So that was a great conversation. Been looking forward to showing you that. So I hope you enjoy that. And then the conversation after that is with Dave Knox. Now, Dave Knox is an author, wrote a great book called Predicting the Turn. He is a very astute businessman, shall we say. Has been involved in businesses across the board for quite some years now, and he is a big trading card enthusiast, and the conversation with Dave was great from an industry perspective, where he sees things going, and he's had some great advice for us as well. So this is a really interesting podcast, slightly different to usual, I know, with the two interviews merged into one. There's no conversation with Mark and I in this episode. However, we are going to be doing things slightly different as we move forward. So now I'm going to hopefully get out into the wild, go and actually meet collectors, meet big figures from within the industry, hopefully players, former players. Going to get out and about, get on the road, and take Soccer Cards and Chill out into the wild. So that's something to look forward to. Anyway, enjoy this episode. Remember to give us a like, share, and subscribe. And I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Futera presents Soccer Cards and Chill.
Hello, everybody. Hello, George.
Hello.
Just tell me, mate, very quickly, how do you keep your cards safe?
So it's penny sleeve, sort of in a soft plastic, then in a top loader, and then masking tape over the top, and then sort of into a box.
Masking tape over the top?
Yeah, masking tape over the top, so it doesn't come out then.
Oh, I see. So the reason why I ask is because literally before we jumped on this call, we're just having a good little chat about the plight of Ipswich and whatever, and we'll cover that again probably, and the challenges of fatherhood during lockdowns. But the reason why I wanted to just get that in there straight away, because you just kind of you showed me your stack of Futera cards before we hit record, and I was looking at them, and I wrote an article on the website where I worked with Card Hour and Austin from US Soccer Breaks on how to keep your cards safe, you see. So as an avid collector like yourself, I was intrigued. So the masking tape thing, I didn't mention that in the article. So you're saying is that a little pro tip there?
Yeah, so that's sort of when you're shipping them, you sort of mask tape. So can I show that? So I got the obviously Tommy Doyle one recently. So because it's a thicker card, it could slide out. So I sort of just put it over the top just to make sure it sort of doesn't move out in there. Yeah. So it just sort of makes it safer.
Oh, I see. So I mean, the only thing with that, though, I'd say is an observation, is does that not make them look like, less appealing? They've got this masking tape over the top, or
so that obviously these ones, I want to look at sort of getting them. So these sort of just tucked away at the moment, and then when I've got more time and sort of I want to get a case so I can sort of show them. So then it will sort of obviously be in display. But now when they're just stored, because I've got quite a small office, when I'm moving around, if one does unfortunately drop or move, I'm not worrying that the card's going to slide out the top loader and sort of damage the condition of the card.
I understand. Very smart, mate. Very smart. You're thinking about this. I like it, George.
Yeah,
I like it.
after.
So you have. So why don't you tell me a little bit more, and the guys listening and watching this, some of them will be aware of your content. You've been quite proactive online. So who are you? What little organizations are you involved in? What type of things are you doing content-wise around cards?
So I'm sort of my own sort of self is KS Cards George, which is where I sort of, it's my opinions and sort of I say my views and do like a card talk each week where I cover a little segment of the hobby or my opinion. And I'm part of Cambridge Soccer Cards, which is again me and sort of two mates sort of just discuss the hobby and do a podcast each week. And then I do KS Card Sales, which is where I sort of trying to sell cards for people and sort of improve the buying and selling experience.
Okay, right, I see. So, and how long have you been involved in the hobby for now, mate?
So I think August, sort of middle of August is when I sort of started getting into it. But I've collected like match tax when I was really little with like my mates sort of collecting the binders, still got them, and just sort of I didn't fell out of it, didn't really think about it. And then Gary V, obviously you all know Gary V.
Yeah.
I listened to him when I was sort of out and about, and he mentioned it, and I was like, oh, I know football. I enjoy collecting. I enjoy looking after like, having things and them increasing in value. Obviously, COVID, making money, so I thought I'll try and get into it. And then sort of couldn't find any content anywhere when I got into it. And so for me, when I get into something, I've got to do all the research and sort of make sure my knowledge is, before I put any money into it, I've got to know what I'm talking about or know what I'm doing. So I couldn't find any content, and then sort of Cambridge Soccer Cards United, who've been on yours with you. I sort of found them, listened to them, they're really helpful. Sort of ask 100 questions. So if I'm in something, I'm questions, everything I'm asking questions, like to better my knowledge. And then sort of September is when I sort of made my first purchase, and then sort of just bought from then and been in ever since, hooked.
Yeah, you've turned into a bit of an advocate for us, mate, which is very good. Makes my job easier as the marketer. You're kind of doing me work for me, mate. So
make it easy for me though. Make it easy.
Well, that's very kind of you. So, what is it then that we don't like to make these podcasts too much, about Futera. They're just about the hobby.
It's going to be today.
Well, that's okay. You're giving me a good excuse. Normally, I have to pretend to talk about the other brands, and I just want to get back to it. No, I'm joking. I don't. This is all an education for me. So, what is it about? What is it about Futera that attracts you to us?
It's so when I brought my first one, must have been October. I brought like a Romelu Lukaku for like really cheap, an early one. And then I didn't, because people were supposed to like, oh, you're not like authenticated and all this sort of stuff. But I really liked the cards. But because there wasn't much research on you guys or people like talked about it, I didn't want to go spending money on it early and then sort of be left with loads of cards that are lovely. They're beautiful cards, but sort of no sort of investment. And then when you sort of come on the scene and the work you do sort of shows like a community feel. And I'm a big person that buys into that, knowing the face of the company, being able to talk to you, the content you put out, the cards are all of them are parallels, which I think is crazy. There's no other company that you can get a base and it's a parallel. There's no other thing that you can sort of be able to go on and buy a legacy, which is a patch, or a gold-plated 1 of 5 or get a 1 of 1. And someone's on a budget who hasn't got the money that I can buy a other brand's expensive box. But having the chance to buy premium, lovely numbered cards is unbelievable.
I see. Okay, so there's a couple of things to unpack there. So so are you coming at this then? Would you say, because you mentioned Gary V, and I do appreciate you've got that love for football. As I said, you were having a little bit of a moan about it before we hit record, which I appreciate, because as an Evertonian, I've spent lots of time moaning as well. Although things haven't got as bad for us as they have for you. So
you're my glory team now.
Well, that's good. Well, wait a minute. Don't choose Everton as a glory team.
Premier League. That's 2 leagues above us.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I appreciate that as well, mate. So, So did you? Would you say you approach this then as more of an investor or not?
To start with, 100%. I'm not going to sort of sit here and I collect cards. When I come into it, it was sort of my work shut down sort of March. Been sort of out of work, got a couple of jobs, and then I was like, okay, I can make money, use my football knowledge, enjoy it. So sort of buying players to sell them, did quite well. And then it's once you get in, you appreciate the cards more and you enjoy them more and want to show them off and talk about them. So it's now I've got them, it's like, okay, I really like this cards. Get in it. How do I do it? But then some cards, like, I'll say it, I'm ashamed of myself. I have a couple of Max Aarons, obviously plays for the other team. And he is one that I've just invested in. I would never keep him. He's in a corner. I don't look at him. He can stay there. As soon as he moves, gone. He is there.
You probably feel the same way about a player at Everton then that I've spoken about on the podcast quite a couple of times.
Got his card. You're mentioned I've got his cards.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think what I have learned since I've been doing this, though, George, is that, defenders or whatever don't seem to have the same pull as players in other. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I think the more that the hobby goes on, the more people appreciate our positions, because now it's all the attention's on the forwards and midfielders and sort of the ones that do the games. I think with Van Dijk being so important for Liverpool, which has shown how important he is, their value will gradually increase. And obviously, it's demand. If a big collector who's got the money, who's behind the cards you're investing in, wants a defender, then the money will go into defenders. So I really upset, but Ben Godfrey, I enjoy watching him play now. And obviously his rookie that I've got is in the other team's kit. So it's sort of, it's now like, okay, I really like Ben Godfrey now. He's at Everton and watching him play, he turned into an absolute baller. But because his rookie's in the other team's kit, I've got to sell him as soon as he does anything good.
By the way, I've got loads of time for the fact that you haven't mentioned Norwich City yet. You keep on referring to them as the other team. I thought, as an Evertonian, I thought I could be a little bit bitter about the success.
I won't deny it.
Yeah. I love it, mate. That's what football's about, hey, isn't it? You know, that's what football's about. I have to try and suppress my my feelings towards Liverpool now, given the fact that at Futera, you know, in a professional capacity, we're an official licensee of Liverpool. So
that must be so hard having. Like, I watched your live stream, and you have to hold up a Virgil van Dijk and sort of praise it, and I'm thinking, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, look, here's the thing. I'm very privileged in the job that I've got. So I have to put my feelings to one side, and they are. I can't deny. I mean, Liverpool are one of the biggest clubs in the world. The attraction. I think us as a company, you know, I think we're very proud to have a.
Yeah.
I don't want to use this word because I think as a football fan you go, ugh, but to have a brand like Liverpool associated with.
It's moving that way though. We can't deny it. We always try and sort of say like we're not like that, but there is that now brand aspect of players are their own sort of indices now.
Yeah,
like, you can't deny the fact that Mbappe is Mbappe. He's bigger than a club. Like you don't buy Mbappe for the player now. Okay, he's a world class player. I won't say he's not a world class player, but you're buying him for the pull of being Mbappe.
Yes,
like
you're not buying him for the club. Like, yeah, I see. Yeah. No, it's definitely interesting. So I think. But anyway, I love that level of bitterness that you won't even refer to that. That's proper football. I love it, mate. I love it. Yeah, no, it's interesting what you say about defenders. I'm intrigued to see. For example, I think we still have Van Dijk cards available at the time of filming this. Here you go. Here he is. This is a marketing prototype, by the way. It's not a legitimate card. It's just one that I get to use for promotional aspects. But yeah, I think we still got some of these on the.
It's crazy how it's so like available. You think if you go on to the like comps of Van Dijk's parallels, they're selling for loads, and you can get it cheaper now online. And it's if you're a Liverpool fan, like an Ipswich fan, if you had like a Luke Chambers of 35 of the Premier League, you'd snap it up. I just think it's still, for me as an sort of investor collector, you guys being cheap and not seen as a big player is amazing for me. As much as it hurts you guys, I'm still picking up like 2006 Ronaldos for like 30, 40 quid. And it's people don't realize they're so focused on the big two, they don't realize you guys are going to surpass them. So in my opinion, obviously everything I say is my opinion. I'm sort of saying it, but the reason, so it's American hobby, isn't it? So the hobby in trading cards is American.
Yes.
So the other two companies do baseball, basketball, NFL. Yeah. So now they've got into football, that people are only buying what they trust. But when you've got a company that just does football, which is mental. Imagine this company, football's the next big sport. It's a global sport watched by millions, the biggest sport in the world. You can't deny it. And you guys just produce that one sport. Your sole focus is that one sport with numbered cards. It's crazy how it's still available. And when people start, like even on the eBay comps, I've seen your prices just rise steadily in the resale market. So I think it's only going to be a matter of time until people realize, wait, this company just does football cards.
Yeah.
It's sort of.
It's a real.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, mate. I do. No. I think you're dead right about the sport of football. I think there's a lot of potential there for growth still. I think I say about football, it's played everywhere from Canada to Cambodia to the Congo. Like, there's no country that doesn't play football. Which there are lots of countries that don't play baseball. There are lots of countries that don't play basketball. There are a lot of countries that don't play American football.
Yep.
So that is different, and we're obviously well placed to take advantage of that. What we try and do here as well is, I think, because the core element of the company, especially when you think about the face, Mark and I, who appear on these podcasts, we are just genuine football fans.
Yeah, you can tell that as well.
Yeah, so I think that kind of helps, really, because we just know the game, and I think that just helps. But yeah, I mean, look, the secondary market's one of them, though, George. I mean, you guys will take a lot of interest in that, but for us, it's like we've still got to ensure that the people that purchase from us get good value, and and that's why we, position ourselves as a premium brand. Our cards are premium, but then, we're not going to. I can't see us ever being like, right, okay, our cards fetch this much on the secondary market. We're just gonna.
Not that way. But I think it's good to see an indication of the value of previous cards on the secondary market to show where you're at. So say like I picked up a Messi card. I think it was for £13 on the secondary market, and then because it was so cheap. I'll try and find it now. This one.
Oh, wait a minute. I've got my notes up here. Let me move them out of the way. Oh, I see. Yeah. I remember that card. Yeah, I've seen that flopping around a little bit.
That was £13, and then I've gone to look again. And although it's not a big increase, I brought two because I think it was a week later for 20.
Okay.
So even that little bit of fluctuation shows that it's going up, if you know what I mean.
And what do you think? What do you think the impact of like the stuff that I'm doing with this podcast?
Oh, massive.
You think that's having an impact on that?
Oh yeah, massively. Yeah. Even the live you do had what 30, 40 members at some point, 50, 60, 70. I want to say I didn't obviously keep track of it, but
around that.
It fluctuated, and I think that's people have spent the time of the day at 1 o'clock, which is obviously a working hour, to watch you on a live stream before a release. So I think and the fact you're doing it as well on a day that the other company released a premium product, and you still got that pull from people in the hobby, because we've got to face fact, it's not a massive hobby at the moment. It's still sort of the same faces you see, sort of the same people. So I think having that many people tune in at 1 o'clock for a preamble card release talk is a huge thing for your company. And the podcast, I messaged you, said I couldn't get them on Spotify, which is, for me, I listen to it all in the car, and then
I've changed that, by the way, now. Should be fine now.
So I was sort of, for me, listening to them, it's so good having, like I said, the face for the company that you can actually listen to, talk to, have their opinion, and you know that you're football fans. So sort of, for me, the worry is when I don't buy from the other two anymore. I've sort of said to myself, I'd rather support. It's that small business mentality. Sort of, I know you're not a small business, but it's that for me, because I'm a small business, sort of, it's that support of the ones that try and make that extra effort and the extra mile. You want to then give your money to them.
I see. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's, well, I mean, in comparison, we are really to the other two. We've got a good heritage, been around for 30 years, but, Tops, I think, have got maybe 100 years of us in some form.
Yeah.
So they've got a fair bit more time on us than we have. They've been in this space a bit longer, and I think the same goes for Panini. I'm not an expert on the history of either of those two organizations, but yeah, you're right. They are bigger organizations. They have a lot more people working for them. We've got a smaller team. You interact with the guys in the service team. Then there's Mark and I. Then there's there's the guys in the production team and stuff. But there's not like loads and loads of different departments. We all kind of know each other, and we speak quite frequently. And I think that helps, mate. So just going back to the hobby for a second, where do you think this goes then? Because you said something quite interesting. You said this is still quite a small hobby at the moment.
Yeah.
Do you think it can grow?
Yeah, it's because we're not in the bubbles with cards. I think we're in a bubble of COVID situation. Like for me personally, I have so many factors that allows me to, because my main employment isn't going ahead, I have time to put content out, research cards, buy cards, but then I haven't got the financials that I had pre-COVID to be able to go out and buy. Like I can't buy your gold cards because I can't outlay that in a week.
No.
So if it was normal times, I could I've got that financial stability to be able to buy the gold cards. I think I mentioned it on Card Talk, just the one gone, that I can see it going two ways. People get back to normality, the money leaves cards and goes to going to football, going to the pub, taking their kids to soft plays, going on holidays, and the money leaves the market that way. Or people in it, they get money back from their sort of employment and have got money to then invest it heavier. So I'm on the fence of where it goes. It's going to go up. Like that's not 2026 is everyone's aim, and it's going to go up. But I think we'll either see a small dip of normality of go into the pub, your mate don't collect cards, you don't talk about cards, you talk about just normal football or fantasy football, and your money goes into buying the drinks. Or we see it as, I've got more money, mate, look at this card, just brought it.
I suppose it depends on how long people think they can, if people still feel like they can make, your investor type stuff like they can make cash off cards, then that, I do see what I do. I mean, only time will tell. There's definitely
it's a hard one to judge because of the bubble we're in with COVID. Is that everything's so uncertain on where? Like for me, I'm staying in. I'm fully invested. I love it when I've got sort of more income. I can't wait to sort of buy cars that I've looked at for so long and been like, oh, I can't wait to sort of get it and then buy display cases, be able to display it and sort of enjoy it more.
Are there any particular players at the moment that you're like really excited about that you actually no? That's too much of an obvious question. Anybody that you because you could just say, well, I'm really excited about Haaland, right? But see, anybody okay, I'm gonna change the question slightly. But is there anybody that like you think that maybe you don't think that people are taking seriously enough? Without wanting to ramp their prices up.
No, I'm like I've sort of brought the cards that I'm happy buying, sort of thing. So I think people that sort of do that is sort of buy the cards you want. Don't sort of talk about it, and if you haven't got it, don't sort of talk so you like it. If you know what I mean. So I'm a big Dominic Calvert-Lewin fan. So I've sort of got a numbered card of his. I've got 2 of his rookie cards. I've got his original sticker. I've got some Prism sort of refractor cards. So I think he's gonna be massive. So I think he's got to go to Euros. He's a threat that other teams won't deal with. I think when you saw him with Hamir at Everton, he was dangerous. Sort of, you can see that Everton's players are now getting injured, and sort of you haven't got Decore there, sort of in the middle. You haven't got James Rodriguez sort of playing the balls. So you can see that when Dominic's around good players, how good he can be. Yeah. So I've invested into him massively, and then other players obviously you've got like the Pedris and Ansu, but I think the hobby's so focused on rookies that it just forgets other footballers exist. So when I first got in, I was big on Jude, Pedri, Fati, Camavinga. But then now I'm sort of looking at, okay, Lewandowski tore like Dortmund apart. Like it didn't tear them apart, but he turned it on when they needed it and won the game against Haaland. Haaland scored 2, and then on the timelines, everyone's saying how good Haaland is, but you're forgetting that they lost and how good Lewandowski actually is. So his cards are cheaper than Haaland's card, but Lewandowski's achieved what you actually want Haaland to achieve.
Right, I see.
If you know what I mean. So I think it's so centered on the next rookie. Look at Messi's price from his rookie card, but no one is going to do what Messi's done. Like Messi's just surpassed, in my opinion. Again, everything I say is my opinion. Don't take anything as investing or fact. No one will do what Messi's done. Everyone can say he's the next Messi or he's the next Ronaldo, but no one. Messi for me is the pinnacle of footballers.
Yes.
So I think we forget how burnt out young players can get, and we forget how hard it is to sustain a high level of football. You think Messi went to the final with an Argentina team that wasn't all that. He managed, and everyone's like, he didn't win the final. Look at the team that he took there. Like, it's still an unbelievable fact that he took that team to the final. I think Mbappe is so under-talked as well. He's achieved a World Cup already. He tore Barcelona apart. Like, he did. Like, facts. And then he's still, everyone's like, him or Haaland. But Mbappe's won a World Cup. Mbappe's going to win a Ballon d'Or. It's sort of that, for me, is people forget that footballers get older and sort of have achieved more than a rookie can.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I suppose that the logic there is thinking there's someone like Lewandowski, for example, like he's at the back end now. So all people of his career, so all the people that enter the hobby between now and say 2026, which is his year that's given because of the in the United States. Are those people that enter the collection, enter the hobby? Are they going to be as bothered about Lewandowski because they're just not going to be as privy to him because he's gone at that point? And is that why there's the focus on rookies?
I think that could be, and sort of you get to watch, you have that nurturing of, I got him when he was nothing. That sort of selling your mates. I brought this card, and now look at him.
Yeah,
Lewandowski. You know what I mean. You're sort of like, I anticipated him to have this rise, and I got in early. And like people say about Apple stocks, like, I got an Apple early, I saw it. Like now I'm got like millions. I think people with that sort of, they want that feeling of, oh, I saw him, like, you know, when coaches say it.
Yeah.
Like, I saw him when he was young and now he's the next best thing.
You know what it is, George, don't you? It's a basic human desire to be right.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I think that's I enjoy psychology. So I just watching, and you can see as well, people have vested interest in different cards, so they will share things of that player. If that sort of, if you've got like 10 Lewandowskis, you're gonna, everything he does, you're gonna put on Twitter and say, look how good he is. Look how right I am. Look, I said he would be this good. Is that, you know what I'm saying? Like, if Dominic Calvert-Lewin scores a hat trick, on Twitter straight away, next best forward.
Yeah.
Because I've got his cards. I want everyone to be like, look, I'm right. I said how good he is. When he scores the winner at the Euros, I'm gonna be there. Sort of that sort of, I'm right. Sort of, I'm amazing at it sort of thing. But then people don't share their, I brought a player that hasn't played the last 10 games. They don't share that.
No, they don't. 2 seconds. I've got someone at the door, and I think it's a really important package. So I'm going to have to like literally answer this on air. Let's just use my Ring doorbell. 2 seconds. It's very unprofessional, but I think it's an important package. So, they've gone. They've gone. Didn't get that quick enough. You were too busy. I was too busy listening to you talking about the whole situation with rookies and. No, absolutely not. No, I wouldn't do that. Someone's at your front. My Ring doorbell. I've got one of the new Ring doorbells. Any of you watching this are aware of them. They're quite a good idea in the sense that you can kind of like talk to people when they're outside your front door, but nobody's there at the moment. It keeps on saying someone's there, and they're not.
Want to check or
Anyway, no, you're fine, mate. You're fine. What impact do you think that the coronavirus had on the hobby then in general, mate? You know, you did kind of touch on this a little bit.
I think it's accelerated it to a point that people are free in their time, but I don't think it's caused it. I think that it was always coming. That even obviously the person everyone speaks about, Gary V, obviously he did say it a time before COVID. He sort of said he's interested in it and enjoys it. But I think COVID's accelerated it, that people have got spare time, and if you're on furlough or still working, you've got money that you can't spend it on other things because everything's locked down. So you've got that money, you've got the time, you've got interest. It just merges all together.
So I'm not sure. Do you, if you imagine an alternative timeline where there wasn't COVID,
I wouldn't be in the hobby.
No, that's interesting.
No.
So I wonder how many people that is actually the case for. Like what percentage of collectors actually did enter, because if COVID would not have occurred, where would we be?
But then I might have entered later on, if you know what I mean. Like I might have entered a year later when sort of I don't know. Like you never know. That's what it's fascinating. Of we can say COVID caused this, but it's the fact is we're in it. It's growing. Like more and more people are getting into it. So it's interesting to see. I think the next one is post-COVID, what happens, sort of, if you know what I mean. I think it was definitely growing, but I don't think football would have grown. It's a weird one, but I think because the European market, it was always the American market, but I think because the European market grew because of COVID, I don't think football cards would have grown as much as well.
Right.
So when I got into it, the cards were really cheap. So like £2-3 I was picking up cards for, and then sort of because the Americans didn't know what it was, or it wasn't big to them, and there was no investment because no Europeans were in it and wanted to buy players off of them. They were so cheap. Whereas because the European market and people have got into it, the Americans now realised there's a market in Europe that want the cards, so now they're more expensive.
Okay, interesting. What do you think then for the rest of this year, George? We're in March now. What do you think happens to the hobby for the rest of this year, or does that actually depend on like what happens with COVID and when these restrictions are lifted in the UK specifically?
I think I don't know what they call it, off season. I'm forgetting what it's like. Sort of pre-season, when the season finishes, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with card prices then, because either people will see cards that they can pick up cheaper because they're not playing and think about the next year or the years after and the Euros and the World Cup, or people sort of aren't watching it, so they aren't interested. So they're sort of like, it's not on TV. I don't sort of, even like personally, if I see someone play a blind of a match, I look at their prices if I can pick one up cheap, and it's sort of too late because they've already gone up sort of because of the game. So I think because it's not on TV, you'll have the hardcore collectors or investors that are sort of, oh, it's pre-season, sort of season's finished, I can pick them up for cheaper now, and people are offlaying their sets because they sort of want money to go on holiday now that the sort of borders are opening. Or it's sort of, it's not on TV, I'll wait till it's back on so I can sort of invest again. It's sort of, I'm not good at predicting things. I sort of, it's going to be a strange one. Because I think with the Euros in the air as well, there's no sort of set date or time when that's going to be on. So I think that's going to be, so if it does happen and it's in England, the buzz is going to be around English talent. And sort of like, I've invested into English players because you naturally do, because they're your country and they're your ones you affiliate with. So like Jadon Sancho, if he plays well, I'm going to be extra buzzed watching it. Like, oh, I've got him. Like telling like your friends and family, like, oh, I brought him when he had a dip in like Dortmund season. Now look at his prices. Look how well I've done. If you know what I mean, it's that sort of, if the Euros are on, if football is on, there is that added buzz and added price. So I think it'll be more of when the season finishes, how it will look like. I think the hobby is still going to grow, and it's going to grow post-COVID, but it's just how much it grows.
How excited are you about Phil Foden?
Oh, buzzing. I think even his Pep is so good that he doesn't expose players so quickly. He edges them in. I think I hear people talking, saying, oh, if he was this good, he would be in Pep's team straight away. But they forget how good Bernardo Silva, De Bruyne, Gundogan are. Like Foden still, I want to say 19. I could be completely wrong. I want to say 18, 19, but he could be older now. But I think he's still so young that Pep it gives him the game time to still develop, but he doesn't expose him so much that he burns out or becomes too well known and too relied upon. Because the English media is horrendous for young English players. It destroys them. So you don't want to become a player that one bad game ruins your whole career. I think Pep does it so well that he'll play 90 minutes that game. He's on the bench, comes on for 10, plays 90, and sort of is developing him to be. I think he's going to be an outstanding player. He's learning from De Bruyne. Like, you think how good De Bruyne is. Foden's training with them sort of players. He's going to be massive. It's going to be crazy.
It's interesting what you say about Guardiola betting him in, and I think you're right on that. Actually, I think I've seen that. I've seen people say, "Oh, well, if he was this, if he was that good, he'd be playing all the time." And I hadn't actually considered the fact, or I hadn't come at from the angle of, well, the competition that he has within that side. It reminds me a little bit. So back in the day, David Moyes tried to do something similar with Wayne Rooney when he broke into the Everton side. The difference is Rooney was obviously just stupidly good, and we couldn't, because I remember him trying to like bed him in, and as fans were like, he should be playing all the time. Like, what's going on? Like, he was still bringing him on at like 65 minutes and stuff. But the difference was then is he was surrounded by like pretty much average footballers at the time. So he was just like, but obviously at City, Pep has the luxury where he doesn't actually need to play him all the time. If Foden would have come through the ranks at, say, Everton back then or whatever, as Rooney did with Moyes. So yeah, I think that's a really good observation.
I mean, one key thing there as well, like Everton need the money. Like if someone come in for Foden at City, they can say
exactly
no. Whereas other teams, someone comes in, they have to say yes, and the player's gone. So I think it's that as well, the fact that Man City don't need to offload their talent. They can grow it and develop it. Whereas if you come through at Everton, if a Man United came in and said, here's 100 million, he would go. Whereas if PSG or Barca come into Man City and say, here's 300 million, they can say no.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, let's just play this little game then, George. You're the first person that I've done. Well, no, you're not actually, technically. I did this with Richard Buxton. That interview should be out by the time this one goes out. He's a journalist who covers Everton and Liverpool, and also was a Futera collector back in the day. So I played this game with him first, and then I'm going to play it with you now. So I've got... Now, this is better for the people who are watching as opposed to who listen to us. So I'm going to have to play in the cards. So I have a Memo Stars, Kaka, gold-plated memorabilia card with a bit of his jersey in from. It's the game wear jersey from an international friendly with Panama, and then also a piece of his AC Milan jersey from a Super Cup match against Seville in 2007. So that's the first option. I think it's 1 of 25. And then there's a Memo Stars Luis Suarez here, 17 of 29. And this card features a bit of his Barcelona game worn jersey from a La Liga match against Real Madrid. And
Wow.
piece of a Liverpool away game jersey from the 2011-2012 season.
This is a really hard one because it's very simple. As soon as you lift them up, I know exactly what I was going to do. Because they're lovely cards and I'll display them, has to be Suarez because I can't have yellow and green together.
Oh, okay. Right. I see. So that would be why you would pick Suarez then.
That is the problem I have. Because it's obviously like delusional, people call it. That would be a struggle displaying that sort of thing. It's because,
right.
if you know what I mean. And also, a Real Madrid-Barcelona game is massive, whereas a Panama-Brazil game...
Not so big.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I'm a big Suarez fan. I think he's massively underrated as well. Suarez.
Did I say who this card was from? It's Kaka, by the way. I don't even say. Did I say that?
Kaka, yeah. I didn't say it, but I knew.
Oh, well, I should have said it because people listening will be like, what was he comparing these to? Right, this one is from the Unique Live current release. We've got a Sergio Aguero's mythical card, and we've got a Jordan Henderson mythicals card. These are gold-plated. If you'd have got the chance to buy either one of these, which one of you'd have gone for?
Aguero.
Why Aguero over Henderson? Do you think that which one of these players do you think in the future will kind of be remembered the most?
Aguero!
Oh, of course. What over Henderson? Do you think?
I don't know. I just find him not boring, but he's just it's a workhorse, isn't he? He's loved at Liverpool because he's what you need and does the job. Whereas if you go out to like anywhere else and say, "Oh, Aguero," they know him. He's a sort of he's a all-time great in the Premier League.
That's fair enough. I just feel like Henderson lifting the Premier League trophy for Liverpool, given the fact that they hadn't won it for so long. I think in 20 years' time, let's say, like if you ask our kids, do you know Sergio Aguero? Do you know Jordan Henderson? I think they might be more likely to say Jordan Henderson, but who knows?
Yeah, see, but then obviously I coach like primary school kids, so Aguero is obviously the main sort of. You want to be the striker. No one comes to like a coaching session and goes, "Today I want to sit in the middle, I want to win the ball back and just pass it to better players." Like no one says they want to do that. You all go, "I want to go up top and score the goals."
Yeah. Okay. I see. Fair enough. Good thinking. Right. This final selection. So for those of you that are listening, I've got a Douglas Costa / Neymar National Heroes one. This one, George, has got a piece of Douglas Costa's Bayern Munich jersey from a poker match against FC Nottingham. God knows who they are. And then a Barcelona jersey from a game at the Nou Camp. And then this one is Pele and Philippe Coutinho. So this one's got a bit of Pele's Brazil game-worn jersey from an international match in 1968. And then Philippe Coutinho's jersey from a Brazil match, an international friendly against Australia. So which one would you go for?
What's the Neymar patch?
The Neymar patch. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so that's a La Liga match against Rayo. Valenciano. I don't know if I pronounced that right. At Camp Nou in 2015.
I'm going to be very hypocritical, and I've got to go for the yellow and green patch Pele cards.
Yeah, I thought you'd say that.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah, I think just having a piece of Pele's game-worn memorabilia would just be...
That is crazy.
Yeah, this is...
Is that actually a Futera cards?
Yeah, these are Futera cards. Yeah, these are just ones that we've kept back as like marketing prototypes to show examples. So what I'll give you a bit of insight here. As you can imagine, when we sit and talk to clubs about becoming a licensee of theirs as a publisher, we'll need to show them evidence of what we do. So I've got that stuff here, which I'm going to be utilising in the future.
Where's the top loader?
Well, I know I've got to get them all into. I have been sent some top loaders. That's just a job for me to do. They're just in sleeves at the moment, but I will.
Pele, you look after that. That is.
I will. Yes, I will. But they're just marketing prototypes, if you like, to show to people, to show what we do. Right, well, George, one final question. This is a good one for you. You've already given me a bit of advice anyway, mate. And you've told me that you're a big fan of what we do. So that's nice. But what would you do if you were me, mate? What kind of things would you do if you were head of marketing here at Futera? Apart from
I think
give yourself a load of cards.
you've done so well that it's sort of you're doing everything. It's weird ones because what annoys me with the smallest bug, two like tiny bugbears is when I buy cards, it's that rush. You buy it, you pay the $5 shipping, and then a couple of days passes, and I'm like, oh, it's still available. I want to buy another one, and it's another $5 shipping. So that's like tiny, and it's just for me, it's like, I wish I could sort of email and say, look, these are my cards. I've brought I think I brought 7 or something off you. And I paid $5 7 times.
Well, it's email the guys on that though, because we may be able to help there. Yeah, if you're getting obviously if the card's already been packaged up and shipped, it becomes a little bit harder then.
Yeah.
We can bunch orders up. If you were happy to say, I'm going to be buying again for the next 5.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. By the way, if you're listening, then you've also had that concern, that's frustration. That's probably a better word for it. Then do email us info@futera.com. The guys in the service team will try and help there. I think anyway. I don't work in that department, so but I'm pretty sure that I'm aware that. Yeah, so we'll bank them for you if that makes sense. And send them all together. Yeah.
And then the second one is some weeks it said the game worn on the back, and then some weeks there wasn't a picture of what game it was from. And I quite like that. So with the De Bruyne, I didn't buy it because it was training shorts, and I sort of wanted to save the money for sort of bigger releases down the line. Then I think it was I can't remember who the player didn't have the back saying what game it was from.
Okay.
And I think that one, it's sort of I quite like the anticipation of getting it and sort of what game it's going to be from. But that's a tiny one that sort of I quite like knowing. Like that's why you guys do, even though you say on the back of it what game it's from, it's that added touch of knowing pre. But then you might not know what game it's going to be from if it's not made yet. You might then pick it later and put it in. But that's something you guys do amazing, is having the card on the back, whereas Panini just say it's authentic from the club, so it could be any sort of top, whereas you guys at least say it. So I think it's a positive and a sort of, I would love to see it sort of on the website as well.
Okay, all right, I'll take that on board. What have you got there? Have you got a Futera card there?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go on.
I brought this, but it says promotional card only on the front. I don't know if you can see.
Right. Okay.
What does that mean?
Well, that means that I don't know if that's like maybe a version of like the cards that I have here in a way, like some previously got out into the public. I think you've got an incredibly rare card there, to be honest. Promotional. This looks like it's something that probably should belong to stay internally.
Lovely card.
It looks like a lovely card. And you've got it. Is that Beckham then? Was it?
Yeah. I mean, and the other one has players around him in the picture.
Really?
You've seen.
Okay.
Yeah, and this one just him by himself. So I don't know if.
I mean, if it's well before my time, that looks like a 90s card. So I don't know.
97.
Yeah, I think it's just a really, really rare card that probably wasn't intended at the time for public consumption, but has found its way into the universe. So I'll ask the guys here about that. But I think you just dropped on a very, very rare card. So yeah,
I've got some.
Go on, George.
Sorry, am I allowed to ask questions? I'm like,
this is my
fanboy moment.
Go on then.
You always talk about the unique. You can know how rare the card is. So on the cards, where do you find the information to find what the rareness of it?
Well, is there a code on that card? Is there a code anywhere?
No, not on this one. There's not.
Okay. Good question. You've put me. There should.
This one has a code.
Yes.
Beautiful cards.
Oh yeah, that Mbappe one. Yeah, that's from. So that code. If you put that onto onto our codes for collectors app and on the website, whatever, it will give you that information of the population.
What's it called? Code to collectors.
Yes. If you go onto the website into the nav and you'll see. I think there's the collectors. Part of the navigation, you'll go down. You'll be able to do it there, and there's also the app as well. But the other one, though, let me find out about that. It might be that I don't know, but that information might be somewhere else. So
I was intrigued because obviously you say about it being you can find out how rare your cards are, and I've always looked and gone, oh, I'd love to know.
But anyway, look, if you got any questions, and this is the same for everyone else, email me or email the guys, and I'll do some digging for you if you can't find the information. So, George, thank you for coming on to the
That's all right.
Soccer Cards and Chill podcast. Do us a favour before we go. Why don't you tell the guys who are listening and watching this where they can find you and your content? Give the boys at the Cambridge Soccer Card organisation a little shout out.
They asked for if you can send Mark their love as a big West Ham fan, and they're looking forward to the 4 Now set. They've sent their love.
Oh yeah. They keep on requesting that. And what about other places we can find you?
Yeah, so myself is KS Cards George on Twitter and Instagram. And then if you're looking to buy or sell cards, KS Cards Sales is that as well. And if you want to see my face and listen to me and my mates, it's Cambridge Soft Cards. They run the Twitter side of it. Because of my dyslexia, I hate sort of typing and like I can't wait to be back at events or talking and interacting, because this is where I sort of thrive, and because I hate typing, and they're behind all the social media content and all that stuff. I'm sort of just talk and sort of say things. That's what I enjoy.
As a fellow dyslexic, I feel your pain, mate.
I hate it.
Typing it's a burden that many of us have to overcome. But listen, mate, thank you. I've really enjoyed talking to you. We will do this again at some point. Hopefully, as I say to most, all of my guests, really, the ones that live in the UK, especially, hopefully when things open up, we'll be able to do this over a beer next time.
Yeah, future card show as well.
Yes, well, it's in the pipeline. Some kind of event, definitely to get us all together.
That'd be sick.
I think it'd be a lot of fun. All right then, George. Thank you for your time. I'll see you again next time.
No, mate. You too. Cheers.
Cheers.
Unique Live is the latest soccer card collection from Futera. Each week we'll release brand new cards via the website.
Now, over the years, our soccer cards have been crafted with 24-karat gold, silver, porcelain, crystal, and even diamond. But we don't just love a bit of bling here at Futera. No, we're passionate about creating beautifully rare soccer cards. You know, the kind of cards that you want to add to your collection so much that you contemplate selling your own dog to buy one. Sorry, Rover. With limited edition, officially licensed high-end cards available for some of the world's biggest clubs, you can be sure to find huge names in world football appearing on these cards week after week. So if you're new to sports cards, or you're already a big collector, or you're just looking to buy a present for the football fan in your life, well, this is for you. Now share this video with everybody you've ever met and head over to the website to buy yours now. We'll see you there soon.
Hello, welcome back to Soccer Cards and Chill. You'll see in front of me on screen that's the wise and wonderful Mr. Dave Knox. Dave, welcome to Soccer Cards and Chill.
Hey, thanks for having me, Adam.
No problem. You're the second American guest. How's that feel?
Hey, we're trying to represent soccer here in the States. We're doing our part.
You're doing a terrific job. Austin was on before. Austin from US Soccer Breaks, and he was a great guest. And he loves his soccer, and I know that you do too. So it's really great to have you on. Those who are listening that may not be aware of you, Dave, I mean, we speak on a personal level. Which I appreciate a lot. But do you want to tell the guys like what it is that you do and kind of your card journey thus far?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll skip over the boring part with the quick high level, which I'm a marketer by training. So I spent my career really as a digital marketer. First Procter & Gamble, then doing agency stuff, etc. And I think that's important to say because I fall in love with brands, and that's how I get involved with stuff because that's the world I come from. And I've been in the collecting world for, I think, a common theme that you'll hear from a lot of people that, I started in the quote unquote junk wax era. When I was 9, 10, 11 years old, back in the late 80s, early 90s, collecting mostly baseball cards, a little bit of football, because that's really all there was, especially here in the US. But soccer was my sport. I went to the World Cup here in the US back in 94. It's the sport I played my entire life kind of growing up. But like a lot of people, I kind of lost track of cards for 20, 25 years. And I got back into it last year, largely because I'm actually one of my things I do a lot is I'm an angel investor and a venture capitalist. And so I do a lot of investing in new emerging technology and things of that nature. And I was actually seeing some of the guys I respect the most in the business world start talking about collecting cards and all the things that were going into it. And that's how I actually end up really getting back into it, was first looking at not in this debate of collector versus investor, but truly looking at it as an angel investor and a venture capitalist of, hey, is there something really interesting of a new business model that's emerging around collectibles? And so, any good kind of angel investor eats their own dog food. And so I started playing around and said, hey, if I want to figure out this space, I need to get back into it. So I started playing around with it. And, I dabbled with football because that's a sport I know really well. I dabbled with basketball, which is a sport I don't know very well. And finally, kind of was like, soccer is the sport I love. Like, why don't I spend time on that? So that's why I started doing. And I also did it because I have 8-year-old twins here at the house, a boy and a girl, and they're both soccer players. And like being able to get them in particular for my daughter, getting her to see female athletes on the cards, because there's not really any other sports, yes, WNBA a little bit, but soccer was also the way I could show her like, hey, look at this. And like, particularly I live here in Cincinnati, Ohio, Rose Labelle, who's Manchester City and everything else, Rose is from Cincinnati. So being able to show my daughter like, hey, look, it's, Rose and she's on a card. Like, that's how I really got back into it. And it's been dangerous ever since, because my collection's exploded probably in a very bad way.
Or a good way, depends how you look at it.
My wife will say bad way. I will say good way.
I'm sure she will. Hey, look, they're always going to say that. They do say things like that. But for us, it's great, I suppose to have more people purchasing cards at the moment. You mentioned a couple of things there. One thing I want to pick up on with you specifically is you mentioned the junk wax era. I've heard a lot about this. So for those of you listening that are new to kind of the hobby, and you're not aware of what this is, this was an era when there was a massive amount of cards flooding the market, and a lot of them became valueless because there's just so many of them, right? And this was off the back of a time when an increased interest in cards, I believe so. And so the publishers got ahead of themselves and started to mass produce, and we ended up with it, as I said, the wax era. How does that era differ with this one, Dave?
Yeah, I think there's a few differences that are out there. And I think some good and some not so good, depending on how you look at it. So the first is, like I distinctly remember, you could go to pretty much any place and get cards. Your local drugstore, your grocery store, like every place had boxes of cards that were there at retail. And you could go to a hobby shop and do all of that as well. But if you wanted cards, you just had to really walk to a store and you could get them. And so you had that as one factor. But then you also had the price, which, we've had a lot of inflation in the world, but, the price of cards, like a pack of cards, I distinctly remember they were always under $1. Because the big thing was I think it was 1989 is when Upper Deck came out with their first series. And it was the first pack of cards that was over $1 here in the US. And it like blew people's mind of like a pack of cards and $1. Like, I can't pay that. That's too much. And, think about the releases we now see, like $1, you can't get anything for. So, I think that was one kind of big difference when you look between is just the accessibility. And, that accessibility is also what caused the behavior. It's why, you didn't collect the cards, you just wanted your favorite players and you were searching for your favorite players. And it was a little bit about the rookie and the everything else, but it was just like, I want my stars and that's what I want, or my team and things of that nature. And it was just easier to just do that because it was cheaper and it was easier to find them. And you didn't have to specifically drive someplace far away to get the cards. So a lot of that was a big change. Now the flip side is, obviously it was the early 90s. So lack of information that was out there. There was no global marketplace. You weren't selling any of those cards. You might trade them with your buddies, but you didn't even realize that you were in an era where there was a ton of cards available because there was no information out there. Like, you just knew that you and all your buddies could get cards and you could trade each other. And you were jealous when, one guy, like for me, I was a Ryan Sandberg for the Chicago Cubs fan. Like, if somebody got Sandberg, I was trading for that no matter what. So I think that's the big change you've seen is the accessibility, the prices, and the information flow. Like, those three things are the biggest differences now.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting, especially the information piece as well, because I suppose back then, in terms of what information did exist, though, would it have been like hobby magazines and stuff? Was that like the length that you could really go to in terms of like discovering?
Yeah, I mean, it was Beckett magazine, and I also was really into like comic books, so it was Wizard was the other one. So like those two things had all the information, and they were the holy grail for even knowing like what was the checklist. Like, there was none of this like a checklist comes out before a release. It was you find it in the Beckett that month and see what it is.
So I was gonna ask you, like, what do publishers need to be? Like, do we as publishers need to be mindful of the junk wax era? But I wonder if, and we do. I think probably answer my own question in terms of I feel like we do. But is it a case though that now, because of that communication between collector and publisher, Dave, that we're naturally policed by the collector? So if for example a publisher was just flooding the market with cards, then it would be flagged up and more people would be privy to it.
Yeah, I don't know, because we see the behavior. If you look in some other sports, like, I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan. That's my team here for the National Football League. And, we had the number one pick in the draft last year with Joe Burrow. And the thing is, like, there's probably 110 different Joe Burrow rookie cards already.
Right.
And, the publishers, they're not so much doing crazy print runs of a single series, if you will, but they're doing a bunch of other ones. And like, right now we're not in football season. Like, we're in the dead zone of football. And you still have new releases coming out for football cards featuring a guy who was a rookie last year. It's just it's a constant, I think, tension that's going to be out there of what's the right approach, what's the right play. And also the differences, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, of the collectors versus the investors. That's a constant balance that's going to be out there. And so, investors don't want to see you flood the market. Collectors, do want to see more stuff. And, for me, as somebody that wants to get my kids into it, I want to see more stuff that's accessible, because I don't want to have to look over them opening a pack and freaking out that, they might open it wrong and they tear up a, Mason Greenwood or Saka or one of these, Haaland, or pick any of the rookies that a card's worth $500. Like, that ruins the fun for the kid if you're sitting there, creeping over their shoulder and make sure they don't screw it up. So
yeah, it does. I can imagine as well. I've got a 2.5-year-old. She's not quite at the stage yet where she's opening packs of cards, but I can imagine they could be rather heavy-handed with them.
To say the least.
I say that actually. I did literally. We purchased a pack of like Sea Life top trumps for her yesterday, and by the time she'd got them home, this was in the shop, and we only live like about 15 minutes away from the shop. And by the time we got them home, they were already like screwed up and stuff. So yes, it's you have to be careful with kids.
Oh yeah.
On that point, investors versus collectors, because it is a debate that I have quite frequently on this podcast. Do you agree with me that actually there isn't like these aren't two different things now? Kind of they've merged together.
100%, because that's, and it's always dangerous to project yourself into any of those. But I think about my own persona. Like, I invest and I buy cards that aren't ones that I personally love the player or the team or anything about them, but I know that they're valuable and I can get a good return on it. And it's because I can use those to then buy something that I really want. And The way I do it, I personally have like a shelf that sits over here to the side that's roughly about 40 to 45 spots. And those spots are for my personal collection. So those are the cards I love that I am keeping on display that are going to be sitting there, kind of forever, if you will. And I buy other cards. Whoops, I got my buddy joining me on screen. He's a good English lab, so it's fitting for this,
there
this
you
podcast.
Go. There you go.
So, but so I take those cards and I'm doing the investing so I can do the collecting. Like right now we were joking before we started, I have some eBay orders that are going out. And, those eBay orders, they're for a couple bucks a piece. None of those cards are a $500 card. But if I can sell, 10 cards for $2 a piece, well, that lets me buy the next pack that might have something really fun that goes into it. So I think it is a both. Now, I will say I have met some pure collectors that would never consider themselves necessarily an investor. They are just buying as much as they can buy because they love a club, they love a player. So you do have those, I think, as a unique beast that still exists and is out there. But those are, especially maybe more in the sticker side of things, the guys that love nothing more than to be able to say they have every set of the last 20 years and every sticker from a set versus me. Like I have zero interest of owning, these players that, have a 1-year career. I don't want that card. Like that's of zero interest to me.
Do you have stickers?
I do, but I have stickers more for probably actually the investing side of, I really love finding the first card of somebody. And I'm a big believer of like that first card of somebody. And I say card meaning card or sticker, like that first appearance of somebody in a professional kit. Like,
yeah,
I love that. So I do have a couple of stickers. Here in the States, it's really tough though, not just because of accessibility of the stickers, but as weird as it sounds, the supplies for keeping them in good condition, because none of our penny sleeves or our top loaders are the right sizes for stickers. So you get this little itty bitty sticker that's then stuck in this big thing that isn't probably going to protect it very well.
I've seen because I'm very active on Instagram, so I follow all these pages on both my personal account and the Futera account, and I do see that every now and again, like a sticker in a gigantic top loader, and it kind of does look very strange. Am I right in thinking that stickers culturally for me were my first experience of collecting?
Yeah.
And I don't know, is this like a UK/European thing? And because cards are so dominant in the US, that's where they originate from. Is that a thing? Right, so stickers aren't as big in the States then?
Yeah, no, stickers are like Panini's done a sticker series for like football, for instance, and it just sits there. Like no one really cares about it.
Interesting.
It's just a weird behavior that's out there. So that sticker collecting thing just has never really existed. So people just like the cards, and I don't know why, but it's like, I honestly, like, I didn't even know there was stickers were a collectible thing literally until I probably got into collecting soccer, because the stickers here are, you almost just think of them not like even trading cards. It's just like, yeah, the stickers are just some weird thing they're doing just to monetize, their NFL license a little bit more here in the US.
Whereas obviously that's not the case in Britain. I can only talk for Britain, but I think it's the same on the continent. They are so culturally important. I think stickers are.
Yeah. Well, and also South America. So most of the stickers I have are actually South American stickers from like Brazilian soccer players. That's their like first card. So
that's really strange, isn't it? I am kind of rather interested in the culture element to all this, and also the historical thing of like cards originating from the States, being very fundamental, almost to like, because it's not a very old country, is it? The United States, and cards are actually not that far behind the actual just age of the United States of America. I mean, there's documentation of cards appearing in the late 1800s. So we're not that far away from like the formation of the United States, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, that's
Crazy.
exactly. Well, and you've also got like here in Cincinnati, we're actually the headquarters for the U.S. Playing Card Company, which is the makers of like bicycle playing cards and like all the most famous, that you play poker or anything else with. So like that card stock and that idea of the size of a card, I think it's just universal in the U.S. Because the card format is kind of a universal, whether it's a trading card or a playing card. It's a form factor we know well here in the States.
Yeah, it is. You mentioned women's football as well. You have a daughter. You've got twins. That must be hard work, man. I've just got the one. How was twins? I was just off the record. How was twins?
Here's the way I always frame it: is if you've had twins first, you don't know any better.
Yeah,
you're like, yeah, this sucks, but you don't know any better, so you just think it's tough. I had a buddy who had a single kid and then had twins. He's like, yeah, no one prepared me for this. Like, no. But
me and the wife talk sometimes. We're like, imagine, because now obviously my daughter's 2.5, as I said, and she's obviously running around talking back and very excitable as they are, and just that trying to fathom having two at the same age, doing that must be crazy. But you mentioned, go on, sorry.
It gets easier though, I'll say, because like the phase you're entering now, like the first 18 months, because you are truly just having to do everything.
Yeah.
But once they're 18, 24 months, you have a built-in playmate. So that's where it starts getting easier, because it's like, okay, they're going to play with each other. So you get that factor.
Yes. No, absolutely. Maybe we need to do a separate parenting podcast.
Exactly.
Parenting and cards maybe could be a spin-off. But you mentioned your daughter, Dave, and I get it, because I have a little girl as well, obviously. So like I'm starting to think into the future and getting her into soccer. And we, at the time of recording, we released our first women's card for Vivian from Arsenal this week just gone, and it's something we're really kind of like passionate about and we want to do more of. So am I right in thinking, because it's a bit of a meme that gets spread about here, that the women's game in the United States is bigger than the men's game? Is that true?
So I would say it's not necessarily bigger, but it's different. And what I mean by that is it is, the women's national team, and this is probably a gross overstatement, but it's at least my view of the world. It's the one team that you can truly celebrate as women's sports, because it's singular and all the best players are playing for that, versus like, the women's basketball, because women's basketball is very big here. You've got the WNBA teams, but each of your star players is going to be spread out. And, you might have the Olympic team every 4 years, but, the women's national soccer team, they're just more visible because they're playing more frequently, et cetera. So versus, and I don't know why the other sports don't get that same like frequency. So you've got that as a factor. You also have just, girls' youth soccer is very, very big. So because of that, you get that visibility in a really big way that kind of plays out there. And you've also got, most of the time, the players are just more visible for some reason than a lot of the men's team. And what's, I think, maybe unique about it too is the players stay a little bit more constant. So if you look at whether it's Alex Morgan or Carly Lloyd or Megan Rapinoe, or, go down the list of these great players, you've been part of watching them for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Versus if you look at the US men's team, I think the players flow in and out more often. So you have, somebody that's been there forever, like a Tim Howard or, a Clint Dempsey and some of those players. But the supporting cast, I think, changed a lot more often. But because we've had this kind of golden generation for the U.S. women's team, the people you cheered in, 2014, 2018, like they're still there and they're still visible. So I think that really increases the visibility a lot. kind of across the board. So,
and what do you think? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So I don't know if it's bigger. Like it's not bigger, maybe necessarily in some factors, but it's more visible in pop culture for sure.
Yeah, I remember after the Women's World Cup, I think America may have won that, and there was a lot of coverage over here, and the celebrations after that were widely covered and shared across social media.
Well, and what's interesting too with the women's team is there's a lot of cross culture aspects too. Like Julie Ertz, who's one of the top players. She's married to Zach Ertz, who's one of the top NFL players. So you get these cross sports things as well. So Megan Rapinoe and Sue Bird, Sue Bird's one of the WNBA's greatest players of all time. So you get these interesting crossovers that play as well. That I think, you don't see. Like I couldn't name the spouse of anybody on the U.S. men's team.
No. What about the potential though, from a cards perspective in the women's space? Because we're not the first publisher to have created a card for women's football. The publishers are doing this, but do you think there's potential for more to be done?
Yeah, massively. And I think to really give it its due. So I'll just use the example of my daughter. So as I started looking for cards for her, first, if you look at the U.S. women's team, that license, it's kind of weirdly split up. So Panini's got it in part, but then Upper Deck does some stuff with it. And so you'll find the women's team will get used in like the, Alan Gintner will use it in one of their sets. Goodwin Champions will use it. And then Panini will do these one-off like US sets. So like they did a 2015 and 2016 set. But there's no like packs that you could go buy that was all of women's soccer. It would just be like the small subset of the US soccer that you could go off and get. So like here in the US, despite how visible the US women's team is, we watched, there was a small round robin tournament that took place recently called the Believe Her, that it was US, Argentina, Brazil, and I think Canada were the 4 US women's teams. And, obviously Brazil has Marta, one of the greatest women's players out there. But my daughter didn't know who that was because the international women's players don't really get a visibility for the most part. It's really, the US women's team, but that's about it. So I think there's an opportunity to do something that shows more of the sport kind of across the board. And also gets the excitement earlier. Like let's take Rose Labelle, who I mentioned earlier. So Rose is arguably like the hot up and coming star of the US women's team, dramatic impact in the World Cup, in that, championship I just mentioned. She, I think, won the MVP for the tournament. But, Rose is 25 years old. She's kind of in the prime of her playing peak. She's had less than 4 cards ever created of her. And almost every single one of those cards were actually in the Goodwin Champions deck last season. So they did like 4 varieties of her. But if you had somebody that important of a player that was, in the prime of her career, on the men's side, there would have been multiple cards of her that would have come out. Topps Now would have had a card come out as soon as she, scored that goal in the Women's World Cup, etc. So there's activity, but nowhere close to what it should be, kind of across the board. So I think people are missing a massive opportunity. I think actually one of my most expensive cards is actually a Rose Labelle autograph card that I bought for my daughter because there's barely any of them out there. So,
wow, that's fascinating. And in terms of cards, you mentioned an autograph card, David. What I'm intrigued to know you as a as a collector, and also, you know, like where you see the most potential in terms of types of cards. So I've got a couple of cards here, and we're going to run over them in a little bit. You know, I've got a patch card. We do our signature kind of gold plated card, which is very unique to Futera. Obviously, there's autograph cards. Which cards do you get most excited about, and which cards do you think have the most kind of potential for the future in terms of what people are going to be excited about?
Yeah, so I would say I fall into I think you can call it an American mindset. American mindset of we love what shorthand called RPAs. So a rookie patch auto, like those are the holy grail cards that you're looking for. So like the LeBron James rookie that just sold for a massive amount of money, that's what it was. It was a rookie card with a patch and with an on-card auto. Because that's the other important thing is, sticker autos are cool, but on-card autos are really, really cool. So I think those are what you're looking for. But what I think is important is also all of those things being on one side of the card, so you can actually display it and show it. So you've got all of that coming together. So that's what I look for. Is I love the RPA. It's actually what got me into Futera in the first place, was actually your guys' approach to how you do patches, because I found Christian Pulisic that was a then and now card that was a Landon Donovan and Pulisic, and being able to look on that card and actually go into the Futera database and be able to see this is where that patch came from, this is the details of it, this is how many of them are out there. Like that's what got me jazzed about it and really into it. Now, what would have made that card amazing is if it also had the autographs of both of those guys, but then it would probably been like $5,000, and I couldn't afford it. So it's a whole different thing.
Yeah, it swings and roundabouts.
Yeah. So that's what I love is the autographs, the patches, but I think it's got to be a patch that actually has something to it. Like, these patches that just are a white piece of cloth that are thrown in there. It's like, who cares? Like, I don't know if that's actually from something, or did they literally just, cut a piece of cotton and throw it in that card? I think it's got to have some character to it. And that's why you see like in basketball, they have these logo man ones, which are, either the Nike logo or the NBA patch itself.
Yeah.
Like those are the patches people absolutely love, is the patches that have some character to it.
Yeah. I mean, from our side, I think I may be talking out of turn here because I'm not involved in the production side. But I think, if you say, for example, I've got a Maradona patch card here, which I'll show you in a second. And I think if you because those to acquire those match worn jerseys are quite tough, you'd have to use a lot more of that shirt because you wouldn't want to throw off it away,
Yep.
So yeah, but I definitely agree with you though. Like it really brings a card to life when I love it when I can see a card and it's got a bit of the badge, the club badge in it. Like I saw one earlier and I can't remember what brand it was. I don't think it was one of ours, and it was a Chelsea one, and you could see like the bottom of the Chelsea badge. It's a nice badge anyway, Chelsea's badges, and it just looked really good in the card. So I definitely agree with you there. So you've written a great book called Predicting the Turn, which I listen to as I run at the moment, and whilst I do the gardening as well in brackets. And I was listening the other day. So you talk a lot about kind of the first chapter is very focused upon I think companies not reacting quick enough to changes in the digital sphere and disruption and stuff. And I see us here at Futera as being a bit of a disruptor in a sense. We certainly like to do things differently, and that's the approach that I've taken since I've been on board. So I'm intrigued to know, like, what's your thoughts for someone who's a collector, but also as a business guy, as a marketing guy? What's your thoughts for where are we going with trading cards, Dave? How's this all end? Look into your crystal ball and tell us, Dave. Give us some insight.
Yeah. So one of the hearts of predicting the turn that I talk about is it's actually not about predicting, but it's like, how are these things going to play out and what are the potential scenarios, etc. So for me, there's a couple of things when I look at cards. So one is, I really do believe that when we think about the generation that's coming around right now, it's a generation that grew up much more in pop culture, if you will. And there's nothing more at the center of pop culture than sports. And so when you look at, let's just talk the very, very high end of, the wealth that's out there in the world. Previous generations, when you hit that wealth, you went and you collected a Picasso and a Monet and like pick any of the great artists of the world. When I look at the guys I know that, started at Facebook or Twitter or Google and, were lucky enough to, be part of those IPOs, I don't see any of those guys ever buying a Picasso to hang in their wall at their house. Like, that's not what they're looking at. But I do see those guys wanting to buy a LeBron James rookie that's got his autograph on it. So I think one of the things is cards are going to be part of that change of human beings love to collect. We've always collected. And when it comes to collecting in that is the thing you want in display when your buddies come over and, are taking a look at your house, like being able to have that LeBron James rookie is, I think, going to be more important than having a Picasso on your wall.
Yes, or a fine wine, because that was another thing that like say boomers would have done.
That's exactly it. So I think that shift has happened. That's going to be out there. So that's on that like really, really high side, if you will, that's going to be kind of playing out there. So I think that's one. I do think you're going to see this emergence of the digital world versus the physical world.
Okay.
And obviously there's a lot of discussion with Top Shot and Suarez and, go down all of those. I'm mixed bag on those because it kind of flies against that thing that you show off, if you will, of this digital thing that's collectible and out there. I'm actually, I think, a more believer that you're going to see a blending of the physical world and the digital world. And what I mean by that, like there's a really cool company called Dibs that recently came out, and disclosure, it's one of my angel investments. But, with those guys, what you do is you actually can sell your physical card into the Dibs marketplace. And then you and I can become fractional owners of that thing.
Yes.
And so like for me, they just dropped a Michael Jordan 1986 Fleer that was on there. I can not buy one of those myself. I mean, that card is in the tens of thousands of dollars. But it's really cool that I love owning part of it, thinking about the rise of the cards and everything else that goes into it. So I think you'll see those kind of blending that go into it. And then if you look like the NFTs and all of those, I think Top Shot is a lot more like FanDuel and DraftKings than it is like Futera and Topps and Panini, in that it's kind of a pure gamble that you're gambling to see what you might get and hoping you're going to make a lot of money off of it.
Right. So you can't select on that concept. You can't select a clip. Then you have to kind of buy a pack. Then you get random ones, do you? Right. Okay.
Exactly. So I think you've got more of that plays out to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think there's all these things that are going to play out, and it's just how is as a manufacturer, a hobbyist, whatever, how do you position yourself in those? Because there's just so many really cool opportunities that get unlocked in this space.
Yes. Well, that's something I think that I say to Mark quite frequently. We have conversations every morning. And I say sometimes, Mark, it just feels like there's almost too many opportunities at the moment. That's not me being ungrateful, because it's not. But I mean, in a sense, it's hard sometimes to actually know what you should focus on. And this is part of the challenge of being in the position that we're in, I suppose, in business, is you've got to try and work that out. I think
well, and that's where I think it gets into like one of the mindsets I talk in Predicting the Turn is like a business needs to think of themselves like a venture capitalist, in that a VC intentionally puts 10 bets out there because you don't know which of those 10 is going to be the one that works, but the one that works is going to make up for any that didn't work. And I think that's the one shift in business, because we historically operate under a this has to work. Like if we're going to do this, we're going to put our resources behind it and this has to work versus a mindset of like, hey, we're going to put 10. Every one of these has a 10% chance of working, but as long as it works, it's going to really, really work. So that's spreading it out and, having a few swings at bat, like that's what matters.
Yeah, and it's about iteration anyway, isn't it? With anything, yeah. So you start something and you like look at it. The thing is with that though, and is I sometimes wonder, and this is something that I'm very conscious of, both in life and in business. Is like you don't want to spread yourself too thin. So if you start to do all these little things, then you can that can be a source of great frustration and actually failure sometimes because you just don't do anything that well. So yeah, it's really tricky. You mentioned there, with regards to the you're purchasing a piece of a card. I'm with you on that. Like that for me purely seems like an investment thing, really. Like I can't imagine collectors would be up for that. But where I'm intrigued by the whole NFT thing at the moment, and I kind of see it in this way. And tell me if you agree or you disagree. You think I've got it wrong or right? But so I really like to read books, and I kind of have this thing where I like to almost like build my library, and that's just something that I like to do. Now I don't have a Kindle, but lots of people just buy books now on the Kindle. And there's a kind of, Kindle's been and taken a certain market share, but there's still people like me who would still like to have a library and physical books, physical book. So suppose because I think sometimes people look at this like a zero sum game. It'll either be digital or it'll be cards. What you're proposing then is it'll just be another facet to the space. Then you'll have digital cards and physical cards, and that'll be the way forward. Is that right?
I think so. And I think that's what, because digital cards aren't new. Topps came out with their digital product probably back in like 2012. And I think where they missed the opportunity, and it wasn't because the opportunity just wasn't there at the time, which was if you look at a lot of the old school digital cards, which sounds weird to even say that word, but Topps Kick or Bunt and some of these others.
Or us. We had that. So Mark spoke about this on the last podcast that we did. Sorry to cut you off there.
Yeah.
We had we were probably ahead of the curve. We had like the World Football game. You used to be able to buy our packs, enter a code, and then your card would be digital on the screen. You'd be able to play with it. And so So again, early adopters, but maybe a little bit too early. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think those were more for like the gaming of just like the kid collecting. It was probably actually more of a sticker mindset, going back to our earlier point of like we do, there's a Star Wars one that my son uses. And it's like, he just got a bunch of digital things. Like, what are you doing with it? It's just there. Versus the physical, like, because there's no monetary thing you do with those. So there's what it's actually missing is there's no gamification. So like great games and great video games, the ones that make a ton of money, starting back with Farmville and all these others, you have to have that gamification element. And I think that's what's been missed. And where it works in these new things that are coming out is they've actually finally cracked the nut on gamification. Yeah. And that's what's really helped them across the board. But I do think you're to see both. Like for me, you can see my library behind me here. You'll notice that almost every single book on that shelf that's a book is something about real life. It's a story of a business person. It's something of that nature. Versus if you look on, I use Goodreads a ton, which is this great digital platform to show what I've read. And because I use my Kindle for, the non, I'm using it more for the enjoyment reading. And I have zero interest of keeping one of those books. The thing that I was reading just to decompress and get my mind away from the world of today. Like, I don't need to keep that book. So I actually just rent that through the library on my Kindle. And it's great because, I can read 4 books in a week of a vacation and I don't have to haul them around.
Yeah. But you've got,
so I think you get those.
Yeah. I see what you say. Actually, that's interesting. I think, and I wonder if collectors will approach that in a certain way, or collectors/investors, where people who are in this space where they're like, there's certain cards where I just love this player, I want the physical card, but there's others that I'm more than happy for it to be digital because I might want to just flip it and move it around and stuff. So
Yeah, well, and I
Yeah.
think you see that even with the physical card behavior. Like take CMOC, the check out my cards. A lot of collectors / investors, especially ones that are international, they're buying a card on CMOC and actually never taking it away from there and selling it on the platform. So they're actually using a physical card, but that same digital aspect of it, or the PWCC vault. I think you'll see a lot of that play out. Like, because for me, going back to the point earlier on eBay, like, do I really want to be boxing up and shipping, a $2 card and going to the post office? Like, no, not at all. Like, I would love nothing more than just to have all those cards that I actually don't love, that aren't in my personal collection, just sitting somewhere that somebody's can buy them and, get them eventually. So I think you'll see all those things blend together and merge together, kind of across the board. So,
and NFTs specifically, because at the time of filming, I spent the entire weekend trying to wrap my head around these things.
Yeah.
And they are crazy. You've got crypto punks and kitty and crypto kitties and thick Pokemon. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. What's with regards to the trading card space specifically, though? Are you excited by this? Do you think it's going to have like a revolutionary impact on the industry, or are we just following on from what we've already been speaking about?
Yeah, I think it will be a segment of the market. So it will not take over, physical cards. I think it will be a segment that's out there. What I'm actually anxious to see is, how does somebody take it actually to the next level and actually do an even further connection with it. So let's play it out with, just with what Futera does. You guys have this really cool moment of, people physically signing these cards. You obviously haven't been able to do it as much with COVID, with the in-person, but imagine if, like, take that Pulisic card. I actually don't want a NFT, like a digital version of that card. Like, who cares? But if my specific number of my card actually came with an NFT that was a unique moment of, them signing, or of a clip, or something that wasn't necessarily in the public domain, that's what I think can get really interesting. Is, how do NFTs, because Top Shot, the joke people will make, it's like, well, that's just a JPEG of something I watched on TV.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. But what if the NFTs actually became of true exclusive content and behind the scenes, and something that you truly only got because of that other connection? Like, that's where I think it can get really unique and interesting. That I haven't seen anybody play around with yet.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get messages about this every day, really. People that I know just from my previous life and stuff, saying, "Hey, I work for a trading card company now. Have you heard of NFTs? I heard it's so rare, and these guys and the stuff they're doing." And it is something that internally we're very conscious of, and we are putting some things together to try and maybe approach this in a certain way. Just, I think, because I've had you for quite a bit of your time, and I know you're an incredibly busy man, Dave. You've already touched on some of the things that you do, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. But one question, in fact, there's two final questions. The first one is, what do you think people are missing about sports trading cards at the moment? What's the one thing that, like, people just aren't talking about that maybe they should be? Is there anything?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff being talked, so it's a tough one to cut through, if you will. But I do think there is, and this is probably more of from the personal pain point, but I do think as we go into all of this, we are missing the reason we're having this moment today is of the rise of cards, etc. It goes back. So one of my buddies is a guy named Darren Herman, who his card thing is called midlife crisis cards. And, so Darren's same age, about 40 years old. And we were the guys that were 10 years old in the junk wax period.
Yeah.
And that's that prime area of, like, you're 10 years old, cards, you love the sport, you love the players. Like, you still think you can become a professional sports player at that time. Like, the world hasn't jaded you. And, so there's a reason 30 years later that we're having this resurgence of cards, because now all of us that are midlife have our kids that are that same age. And so we're going back and we're doing all that. And the one thing I'm worried about right now that no one's talking enough about is, how do we keep kids engaged with cards? And how do we make this excitement of when you're, call it 5 to 14 years old, that you get that love and irrational bond with cards that all of us did back then. And, Panini just did their Prism English Premier League release. A kid can't experience a $650 box of cards. They can't get that attachment. So I don't think we're talking enough in the hobby about how do we make sure that kids can get immersed in cards in the same way for frankly, the long term of the hobby. Because I think if we want cards to still be what they are in 30 years, we better be thinking about how's that next generation get involved today, so they have that attachment for decades to come.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. And you mentioned Panini there, but it's the same with us with our cards. They're not really accessible to a child. They're not aimed at children, but we do have maybe a responsibility to the hobby that we're trying to think a little bit further forward into the future and ensure that we do bring the next batch and generation of collectors through. And then just finally, Dave, as a marketeer, someone who really knows his stuff, I ask this question to everybody, but it's particularly potent for you. What would you be doing if you were head of marketing here at Futera? Don't make this answer too good, by the way, because you are a prime candidate to take my job. So mind what you're doing.
It's all good. No, I think what I love is what you guys have already started. So I think, because we originally connected because of this, because of marketing and branding and all of that. And what I love, I have an irrational affection for challenger brands. Like you mentioned Kindle earlier, like I was the guy that had the Barnes and Noble Nook as my first digital reader because I like to cheer on the challengers because I think you can do a lot more and a lot more excitement. So first off, praise to what you guys are doing, because you're taking some really big moves and doing some really cool stuff. I think I would push you to go even further with that. Of Futera is a brand, and you guys are very proud of you're one that does a lot of things first. What I would be challenging the team is, how do you think take the things that you did first and now do them best as well, and really carry through and just drive as hard and far as you can on that. Because let's take the collector service or I forget the name that's actually on the website for it, but the looking up the code and being able to see
code for collectors.
Yeah, like I don't think the 2019 and 2020 cards have been uploaded in that database.
Right.
So like those are the cards that the generation right now are probably most likely going to get exposure to. Yet they go and experience it and they fall short on it because it's not there. So I think one of the things I would encourage the team to do is, a lot of innovators do the first thing first, but then they don't keep pushing through to make it best in class. And when you don't do that, you sometimes don't get credit for being the innovator, because the guy that came second and kept doing it better gets credit for doing it best. So I would focus on that of, how do you take those things you did first and extend the lead and continue to be recognized as not just the innovator, but the one doing it best. And don't do them all, pick the things that you want to do, but especially given what you guys have already started on, the data and the information behind, because end of the day, we're storytellers. You and I can have jobs as marketers because the world likes stories.
Yes. And
you have stories that I don't see your competitors ever being able to do it because of their size and just how much they're churning out. But you can tell those stories around all of those cards. Like, take that and keep running with it. Because you got credit for being the innovator, but now you need to take credit for being the one that did it best too.
Love it. No, that's really, really, really great insight. Well, I appreciate your time, Dave. I mean, I was going to talk to you about some of these cards. Let's just do this very quickly then.
Yeah, let's do it. We got 4 minutes, so let's run through them.
Which card would you rather? There you go. This is Would You Rather, the Would You Rather game. So this is terrible for the people listening. They can't see this, but for those of you who can see this, I've got a Wayne Rooney Memo Stars, a gold-plated card there, a 1 of 5. That contains a bit of his DC United shirt, incidentally. And then I've got this Luis Suarez. Now, this one is a Memo Stars one, 17 of 29. And it's a gold-plated one. And it actually contains a La Liga match game against Real Madrid.
I love it.
Which is cool. And then a Liverpool jersey as well. Which one would you rather to add to your collection?
Yeah, so I'm a Rooney guy. So
I
love the patch on the Suarez more, but I love the Rooney just because it's Rooney. So.
It's Rooney, yeah. The Rooney, one of the greatest player I have ever seen play football. I'm an Evertonian, so I'm going to be biased on that one, but he really is. He was exceptional.
Yeah.
Right. This one is an interesting. So I need to get some more top loaders. I've got here the then and now Pele versus Neymar. Which is Pele patch card, which is pretty incredible, isn't it? Or a Maradona patch card. This one contains a piece of his Boca Juniors jersey. So
the Maradona is the better patch. So okay. I love the patch. I've got a special play. I just love Pele. Pele is my, because as the guy that kind of started putting U.S. soccer on the map with his Cosmos back in the day. So I would collect the Pele one because of it's Pele and it's more a special place, but the Maradona is the better patch.
Right. Okay. So you've hit me there. You've done me up because you're not falling on either side of the fence. I like what you've done. Maybe we'll merge them together.
Well, I love the then and now series that you guys did too. That is such a cool thing to do. And this isn't to I know we don't like slamming other card manufacturers. Like my disappointment in the Prism pack or the Prism release this time was they had some really cool that was supposed to be like the then and like for Manchester United you had like Ronaldo, which was amazing, but they just signed like the exclusive license with Beckham, and instead of having Ronaldo and that, they had Ronaldo with Nani, and it's like Nani's a great defender, but like versus what you just showed me, like Pele and Neymar, same level, if you will, in terms of in their moment of them at the club. Like, that's a true then and now. And the Donovan and Pulisic, that's a true then and now. It's not like A+ and C-. Like
Ronaldo and Nani like played at the same time together. It doesn't make.
It was weird. Yeah, it just made no sense whatsoever. So I don't know why they were doing that. So
okay. And final cards. These are 2 cards, mythical cards from our most recent Unique Live collection, which is available to buy on the website now. Not these cards; they both sold out. And we've got a Henderson one for Liverpool and a Sergio Aguero one for Manchester City. Which one would you rather?
Yeah, I would probably go Aguero.
Yeah,
that's Aguero. For me, and I love the strikers. So.
Fair enough. Good choice. Well, Dave, thank you for coming on, mate. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Just before we go, let the guys know where they can find you and your stuff and where they can buy the book.
Oh, I appreciate that. So, on most social media, I'm at Dave Knox. One of these days I need to get a fancy soccer title for all of those, but just at Dave Knox on Twitter, Instagram, all of those. I barely use Instagram for anything but personal. So Twitter for the most part, and then predictingtheturn.com is the website that houses all of my book, speaking engagements, the podcasting I actually do for the Forbes CMO network, etc. So all that business geeky stuff is on that side of the house.
I love it. It's all great stuff, and as I say, I'm a big fan, Dave. So thank you for your time again, mate. Much appreciated, and I'll see you again next time on Soccer Cards and Chill.
Hey, thank you, sir. We'll talk soon. See ya.
Cheers, bud.
Bye.